Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. In this video, me and my group members will be talking about the cultural conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia and propose several solutions that can be done. We will also explain further the two main key problems in this conflict, which is the claim of authenticity and use of media. So without further ado, let's get started.
Now, historically, Malaysia and Indonesia have had a rocky to hostile relationship. This situation could perhaps be traced back to an event that acted as the catalyst for current prevailing sentiments between the two countries. The event in question is known as the Malaysian-Indonesian confrontation, or konfrontasi in Bahasa Malaysia and Bahasa Indonesia. Hostilities from this conflict occurred from the years 1963 to 1966. Indonesia had just found themselves free from colonization from the Dutch, which they won through bloodshed and revolution. Meanwhile, on the other side of the sea, Malaysia was cooperating with the British through their decolonization process. Malaysia's perceived weakness was viewed by Indonesia as a reason to initiate attacks on Malaysia as a matter of political and cultural dominance. The then President of Indonesia, Sukarno, cultivated the mentality of Ganyang Malaysia and engaged in a show of power. While this conflict ended with both Malaysia and Indonesia intact, the mentality of a weaker Malaysia, both culturally and politically, have persisted throughout the years and has underlied successive disputes between the two countries leading up to the present, as we shall see in the next slides. The relationship between the two countries has been known to be unfriendly because of the tension of scrambled claims of the cultures from both countries. They would fight for the official ownership of Kuda Kepang, batik, pendek dance, rendang, riok ponorogo dance, and wayang kulit.
We will now evaluate the two main key problems in this issue. First of all, the claim of authenticity. Due to its geographical area that are quite close to each other, Malaysia and Indonesia share many things in common such as having common religion, common culture and many more. However, due to having so much things in common, each country wanted to claim authenticity to a culture as their own, which eventually affects the relationship between the two countries. According to Suharjono in his study, he mentions there are several motivations that could lead someone to claim authenticity, which are economic reason, self-fulfillment, and law-related reason. However, in the case of cultural conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia, the issue of historicity is believed to be the main motivation. Among the cultures that have been the issue in claiming authenticity is the pendek dance and angklung instrument. We will now move on to the second key problem, which is the use of media. Nowadays, media has been used as a medium for receiving and spreading information widely across the globe, and the issue of cultural conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia is no exception. The use of media to spread this cultural conflict could lead to the spreading of anger and hate between the conflicting countries. Social media have also been used to prolong the case of authenticity, leading to the online war between the two countries. For example, a case had been reported where 100 official Malaysian government websites were hacked and supplanted with the slogan Ganyang Malaysia.
One solution that can be carried out is a stronger focus on distinctly Malaysian culture. The bulk of disputes between Malaysia and Indonesia in recent history have been arguments on the basis of cultural ownership. When a tradition or custom that has its roots in both Malaysian and Indonesian history becomes the subject of claims by Malaysia or are attributed to Malaysia by an outside party, this sparks anger from some Indonesians that perceive the situation as a slight or as dishonoring their own legacy. To avoid this, the Malaysian government can direct its focus to uniquely Malaysian arts. For example, the Syair Almarhum Baginda Sultan Abu Bakar di Negeri Johor was once nominated by UNESCO Malaysia as a cultural heritage. Now this of course did not incite any Indonesians to hostilities because it was exclusively Malaysian. While the poem in question may not be immensely popular, it could still hold cultural and national significance, something that the Malaysian government can capitalize on instead of focusing on cultures shared between the two countries. This brings us to the second part of the solution, which is having recognition by international bodies such as UNESCO and ASEAN of these uniquely Malaysian heritage. Now, some might think this could lead to a decline in the appreciation of more popular Malaysian traditions, such uh, that are similar to Indonesia's, such as batik. However, it has been shown in the past that a lack of international acknowledgement doesn't negatively impact local Malaysian industries. In the case of batik, this industry continues to grow despite not being recognized as Malaysian heritage and has even undergone modern innovation that continues to this day.
There is a recommendation to be considered in implementing each of the solutions. First, the Malaysian government can organize an awareness raising campaign to promote the Malaysian arts, cultures, and heritage that mainly aims to educate the public regarding the authenticity and the variety of cultures of both countries. Nonetheless, the government should note to include the use of printed, mass, and social media, thereby reaching not only the audience of the two countries but globally. Then, fostering collaboration between the Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture Malaysia and the Ministry of Education and Culture Indonesia to ensure the information is more accurate and bias-free. Plus, they are ought to provide information on the differences between the arts and heritage of the two cultures. For instance, the Malaysian and the Indonesian batik differs by the process and motif, while the wayang kulit differs by the carving and the size of the puppet and the performance. However, they are expected to not deny the common property of the other countries, since we often share the right of ownership of traditions to avoid a more significant conflict. Meanwhile, international organizations like UNESCO and ASEAN can decide to acknowledge the culture's origin of both countries. It is because of the assimilation and evolution of the cultures into the local environment and practices, just like Kuda Kepang, which is not only the identity of the Javanese in Indonesia, but also the Johorian in Malaysia. Despite that, they should recognize the unique differences and characteristics of both cultures through proper research. As mentioned, each of the arts, traditions, and practices of both countries carries their own identity through the carving, chanting, and motifs. To conclude, the cultural conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia have been occurring for quite some time and have affected the relationship between the two countries. Several solutions had been done to get to the problem, where some had been successful and others may not. Based on the past situations, several solutions and changes had been proposed. Therefore, it is hoped that the cultural conflict between the two countries can be reduced in order to form a more harmonious and peaceful relationship between these two neighboring countries. I guess we are already at the end of the video. I hope this video is beneficial to all of us. Thank you.